Hey, are you wondering if NLP has been discredited? Well, stick around. I'm going to answer that question for you right now. All right, welcome back. In this video, I want to discuss the topic of whether or not NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, has been indeed discredited. Now, I hear this one a lot. If you look online, you're going to get links to things like, for example, Wikipedia, which talk about neuro-linguistic programming in a way that says that it's been discredited and it's pseudoscience and yada, yada, yada. Now, there's a lot of ways that I can challenge this, and I'm pining on developing a much more in-depth video on the topic. But what these things have basically seemed to do is to encapsulate the entire field of neuro-linguistic programming, which, by the way, is hard to even specifically define, because there's a lot of different elements in neuro-linguistic programming. So it takes a small piece of neuro-linguistic programming, let's say, for example, eye-accessing cues. If you're not familiar with that, it's the thought process of when somebody looks into a certain direction, they're processing information internally in an auditory or a visual way or something like that. So it seeks to take one piece of neuro-linguistic programming. There may have been some research that's done on that topic that comes out to be either number one, inconclusive, or it shows that it's not true, and then discredits the entire field of neuro-linguistic programming. Now, this is ridiculous because we all know that you can't just take one little piece of an entire system and discredit an entire system. So NLP in particular, let's put it this way, I haven't counted them all, but there's got to be hundreds of techniques in neuro-linguistic programming. Now, let's also take a look at the fact that neuro-linguistic programming is not just about techniques. Neuro-linguistic programming is about communication. So we're talking about improving communication by understanding language, learning to ask questions, and help people achieve better outcomes through doing so. So how can neuro-linguistic programming be pseudoscience nonsense? So that's garbage, right? I don't believe that for a second. So there's pieces of NLP which you're going to come across which you may or may not agree with. There's lots of things in the core practitioner NLP training that I took that I don't use. I frankly just don't find them valuable, or maybe I dismiss them because maybe they have been discredited, right? But again, there's another thing. I'll give up an example of whether or not somebody is visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. Now, this has been charged a lot with, for example, I don't want to pick on psychologists, but researchers, coaches, different people say this and say that that's bunk because people aren't visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. Even in neuro-linguistic programming, they tell you, and almost any trainer worth their value says that people are not these things. People can be more visual in a certain context and circumstances. They can be more auditory or more kinesthetic in different contexts, right? People are not a thing all the time. We are dynamic, we are complex in terms of human beings. So as a neuro-linguistic programmer, your goal is to understand the varying contexts and things that exist in communication and to seek to understand people better by basically being able to develop a model of their internal reality. And we do that by using things like the meta model, the Milton model, and so forth. Better communication is really what it's all about. Okay? So in neuro-linguistic programming is still very, very popular, ironically, considering how much discrediting it's gone through by mainstream people, but which, by the way, I can say have probably never even taken the trainings. Now, that's a difficult area to say because you don't have to have taken the trainings in order to have an opinion. That's understandable, but go through it and really spend the time with it. And a lot of people actually go through the system and learn it and experience it in their practices, oftentimes find that they develop a tremendous amount of value, but again, over small pieces of it, other pieces they don't like, and then you build and amass your techniques over time. Okay? So when using neuro-linguistic programming, it has to be viewed in the context of overall coaching, all right? It's very similar in other fields, like for example, I'm in the health field. Now, you can't just take, let's say for example, one massage technique, and line up 100 people with lower back pain and do that one technique on 100 people, and then if it doesn't work and more than the placebo, 30%, so let's say if it doesn't beat that number, then the technique is garbage. Well, the technique has to be applied under certain circumstances with the right people, in order for it to increase its value. So yeah, studying a technique by itself is probably going to fall flat on its face. And we know this by virtually all psychological techniques. I don't know any of them that are ultimately passing this. So a lot of them don't get the same degree of scrutiny that neurolinguistic programming has gotten, unfortunately. So I don't want to belabor the point here, but I have a lot of criticisms with the idea that neurolinguistic programming doesn't work and it's pseudoscience, and mostly it's because of looking at the world through a straw, the people who are the critics, okay? So don't use that to deter you from learning these techniques. Anything that's going to make you a better communicator overall and make you more successful is highly, highly valuable. And last point that I'll leave you with, if neurolinguistic programming has been discredited as pseudoscience nonsense, but yet we see an adjacent field which often accompanies neurolinguistic programming, hypnosis. Now if you go look up hypnosis research, you tell me what you find. And there's a lot of success with hypnosis. So there's definitely a crossover effect in these two fields. So that's my 2 cents on that. I'll develop a deeper video later on. Let me know your comments on this and what you think in the comment below. Give me a like on this video, hit subscribe, make sure you hit that bell so that you get notified anytime I launch new videos and we can continue our interactions. Last but not least, make sure you check out in the description box or in the first comment below. I oftentimes link to great trainings and free NLP stuff that my partners and colleagues oftentimes offer that are incredibly valuable. Sam Visnick here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.